Vyama Bastion takes a deep breath. Several beams of Titian laser fire whiz by her, forcefully misdirected by the powerful pocket of wind she sustains around herself and defending Haven Guardsmen. Once the opportunity arises, she lifts and stabilizes her Jacob-rigged modified sniper rifle and fires a single HIRG round that claps a Titian mobile suit square in the chest, shredding the pilot up, leaving a mess right there in its cockpit. Haven Guard heard of the Titian's quote-unquote Frankenstein tech, and so Vyama has been making sure to leave no puppets to dance with. She re-enters cover and gives a signal for the next wave of Haven Guard to push forward into Tisha's unsuspecting forces as planned. A strategically placed Haven Guard cell, titled the Red Team, were specifically placed by Jacob should Tisha escape Monster Island with the source code. With insider intelligence, passionate leadership, and some conveniently emerging allies, Jacob was putting everything on the line. Daniel Rokum shoots down several Titian legionnaires while rushing toward their base. With his singed rifle in hand, Daniel rolls in and out of cover with militant discipline, no-scoping Titians trying to flank his allies in tow. Hannah Yates whistles, giving Vyama the signal. We see Vyama performing a rigid and stiff kata, encapsulated by silvery winds. Her motions suddenly whip up a small windstorm. We cut to a Titian sniper who locks in on Vyama, right in his sights, as she sits in the center of the fury. Just before he can pull the trigger, the windstorm catches ablaze, blocking his line of sight. Daniel Rokum channels his pyrokinetics and successfully begins to bolster Vyama's firestorm, triggering an immense maelstrom. Suddenly, Hannah summons a portal from under Vyama, dropping her in the blazing storm into their enemy, depositing them deep behind their lines. Vyama comes crashing down with a devastating storm, scattering Tisha's line of defenses and destroying their heaviest militia. Hannah Yates leads the charge into their base. We see an army of focused, seasoned Haven Guardsmen charging toward Titian's crumbling entryway, when suddenly their backs are hit with the barrage of steel-ripping rounds as they are mowed down by flanking Hyperion forces who have disbanded Avalon's command and have answered Sajanar's call with promise of a better future. Hannah Yates is struck with a bullet that grazes her head that triggers a lethal whiplash, sending her spinning to the dirt. But before she hits the ground, she's immediately swept up and displaced into a pocket of shadow that carries her across the battlefield to a safer location. Cold, Hannah finds herself laying under the dark amongst an ominous witch doctor. Beside him lay several more severely wounded, battle-hardened Haven Guardsmen, being treated and are fixed to makeshift bandages soaking in special voodoo remedies that make use of their own blood and the witch doctor's very own plasma. The eerie night-skinned herbalist witch doctor peers through the dark, locking eyes with Vyama and whispers, "Let the shadows embrace you and cradle you into eternal night," as he begins rolling out all of his strange and unorthodox tools, wasting no time treating the fallen Haven Guardsmen maimed by Hyperion's flanking sweep. Witch Doctor holds up a specially wrapped gauze steeped in a strange herbal mixture and puts it to her head, removing excess blood. Then, with a few odd gestures and otherworldly sounding words spoken, the mystery animal blood dries and in turn mends her flesh wounds. Vyama knew Jacob had allies from strange places assisting in the trenches, but never expected them to be this odd. She thanks the doctor just before grabbing her rifle and then re-enters Haven Guard's full frontal assault on the Titians. Witch Doctor watches her run off, and we see him stow away her bloody gauze into his collection of rags from the wounded, fastened tightly around his ragged garbs. We cut to Arch Disciple Sajanar. watching Haven Guard forces flood his facility through legions of security feeds. Hyperion forces bought them some time, but were ultimately overwhelmed and neutralized by Haven Guard's forces. Archdisciple, Haven Guard has breached the Seraphim hangar. The Legionnaire shows Sagenar a feed of Jacob and his allies fast approaching. How are they able to breach the West hangar, sir? Sagenar knew, and looks over his shoulder just as the culprit, Matson Mare, steps into the doorway of his lair. His Doratama blade drawn, humming like an airplane engine, as Sagenar's Legion captain can be seen collapsing dead by his feet. Matson's Doratama, singeing his Tishan armor like butter. Sagenar turns around, backed by his Tishan guards, who also draw their rifles, but are told to stand down. Matson held a determined grimace. He was adamant about clearing his name and working with parties who knew what was good for the tank. I'm sorry to have to do this, Sagenar, but the path you're going down isn't for me, nor is it good for the tank. It's about time I stand up for myself for once. Sagenar looks disappointed in Matson, but not surprised. A hologram displaying a log of all of Matson's dreams, thoughts, and exchanges of information throughout his entire time in the Legion's ranks can be seen. Everyone in the Legion was chipped, and every aspect of their being was in line of sight of Archdisciple. He truly was their god. I've seen your aspirations, dreams, nightmares, fears, and visions of the Lotus, Matson. Matson was taken aback by all that Sagenar knew of him. Sagenar projects some of Matson's recent, most treasonous actions for him to see himself. Everything, from Matson's conversation with Infano to absolve him of his crimes, to the planning of the ambush invasion currently unfolding with Jacob and the Haven Guard. Matson screams into his database, calling for a full diagnostic to be ran on his body to locate the intrusive Tishan chip embedded in him. But it was too late. All that information recorded. Even the Haven Guards. Sagenar continues. The belief in the Lotus is a sickness, and I once thought you could overcome it, but I was wrong. Sagenar presses a button on his own abdomen, which triggers the Tishan chip in Matson's body to paralyze his neural network, causing him to become frozen and numb, dropping his blade and unable to warn his invading allies. Sagenar then hacks Matson's data brace and forces it to take shape as arm cuffs that binds Matson's wrists. You chose the wrong friends, but you can all die together, Sagenar says, as he activates the detonation sequence on the entire ship, along with Tishan Legionnaires who we see beginning to set themselves to explode for their god as well. The entire facility begins to flash and blink. With prior knowledge of Matson's betrayal, Sagenar has planned a counter-ambush for Haven Guard. Most importantly, Jacob, the Red Horseman, once and for all. The source code wasn't even on site, and in a moment, Sagenar wouldn't be neither. Using advanced Tishan modifications on what was already superior time and space technology, Sagenar activates a warp key and steps onto the warping platform. He leaves behind a hologram of himself as usual, with a lengthy last message for the mouse. He looks at Matson one last time, then warps away. Moments later, Jacob Bastion and his allies breach the lair. Its walls come crashing down and we see Jacob, riddled with smoking laser holes, roll in and fire the big iron, decimating an entire row of Tishans with one shot. Tishans begin to fire, but are immediately forced to take cover as Jacob kicks a bouncy landmine that comes sporadically hopping toward their feet, but never explodes. The springs in the landmine suddenly trigger, sending it clearing the Tishan furniture and obstacles like it had a mind of its own, and explodes in their faces, scattering them about. allowing them to be picked off one by one by Jacob's splendid marksmanship. Viama spots Madsen subdued and paralyzed. Madsen was attempting to warn her of their impending demise with his eyelids and the whites of his eyes, but ultimately couldn't get the message across to her. Hannah retrieves the source code off of the altar, but after comparing it to Syrian's intel, she can immediately detect that it's a fake. Jacob approaches Sajanar slowly as he begins to monologue and laugh in his face. They caught on and knew that it was likely a hologram, but that's when it occurred to Jacob. Jacob turns around and looks at a paralyzed Madsen being aided by Daniel and Hannah. His eyes were piercing and attempting to signal great urgency. Jacob looks back at Sajanar's hologram that was now uttering its last diabolical words. Everything slows down, and all Jacob could hear was ringing. Tishan soldiers strapped with Tishan nuclear bombs storm the room. Jacob, along with his party, are trapped, and they realize that their fate is sealed. A stampede of civilians flee across the intersection in fear of their lives. We see a young woman carrying her injured younger sister. She trips, falls hard, and slides as the concrete consumes the flesh from her elbows. Keeping her sister safe from the fall, the woman struggles to get back to her feet when suddenly, lumbering over and moving in for another kill, we see an uncryptid, shaking off the influence of Yurtle's magic, attacking the woman, but is met by a ball of fire that combusts in the dimensional creature's face. Vernali Kano rolls in between the uncryptid and the woman and invokes the power of a holding scroll that manifests into a mystical crushing prison that violently binds the creature, then hurls it blocks away. Vernali then picks up the girl and flees hand in hand with her older sister, leading them and the rest of the civilian group to a safe haven in the form of a warehouse attached to the smoky ruins of a Haven Guard's tower. Just before Vernali shuts the door, he holds it open longer for the last-minute stragglers. Sam Maximus can be seen assisting some of the slower civilians toward the tower while fending off mad hostiles. Just as Vernali shuts the door, he holds it open a little longer for the last-minute stragglers approaching. Sam Maximus can be seen assisting some of the slower civilians toward the tower while fending off hostile crazies permanently driven mad by Yurtle's magic. Sam holds onto his fedora while firing a small toy radiation gun, blasting sizable chunks out of crazies tailing them. Just before reaching Vernali and the tower entrance, Sam spots an older senior citizen standing off in the distance. In a daze, he growls, "Ah." He didn't need to be a detective to see how perilous the streets were this day. He decides to run over to collect the poor old man. "Sir, now isn't the time for sightseeing." Sam grabs the man's shoulder to turn him away from his daze, when suddenly, the man's eyes turn white, his neck cracks, and he gains a fiendish grin with a sharp, disturbed glare in his eyes. The old man became possessed by an entity from the abyss, and with super abyssal strength, lunges at Sam to devour his face, but runs into a wall of fire. Sam is pulled back by Vernali and dragged into the Haven Guard warehouse, where they can remain safe and secure for the evening. Vernali and Sam Maximus rest by the tower's doorway to ensure the enchanted lock stays charged and the civilians safe for the night. Vernali and Sam have been working quite well together, combining wits to figure out what the hell is happening out here. Vernali Connell's knowledge of the mystic arts led him to believe that this was clearly nothing short of an unfortunate and untimely natural occurrence of the laws of physics. Samuel looks intrigued and pulls out his notepad. The investigation was still very much in progress. Vernali looks annoyed at Detective Sam, but continues. He explains that reality is like a series of different sized plates that are stacked upon each other precariously. Each plate holds a realm, and all the realms coexist for balance, and without the support of a realm, the entire structure of reality is at risk of collapse. Sam interrupts and picks up and finishes the explanation. So today the plates of our realm are in alignment with the abyss, the thinning of the veil, both say at the same time. A day where if communication with the dead is going to happen, it's going to happen this day. But I disagree with you on the theory that this was natural and merely coincidental happenstance, Sam adds. Vernali was impressed by his knowledge and intrigued himself. Sam loops Vernali in on his investigation of several missing people and how it's tied to the recent paranormal events. The cultist of the tentacle of Yertle, named Bosco, has likely initiated a powerful ritual to manifest a long-taught prophecy to summon an eldritch god into our plane. Vernali rubs his chin as he recalls the purple entity seeping through the tear. There are several civilians right now that are frightened for their lives now knowing that their fates were in the hands of lunatics. Sam pulls Vernali away somewhere more private as not to unsettle the crowd and begins to interrogate Vernali. He asks Vernali if he knows where Bosco is located. An awkward pause ensues. Vernali saw what he was getting at and gets frustrated, and Sam looks back at him with growing suspicion. Sam was privy to Vernali's line of work in the company that he typically keeps. Vernali waves Sam off and takes a few steps away. All practitioners of magic aren't colleagues, Sam backs. I'm no more in cahoots than you are with Anarchy 12 as practitioners of prying, Sam rebuttals. Well, the missing persons led me to the Solarium's Teleslab excavation site near the Teleslabs. Is this a coincidence? Vernali stands up. I'm not with the Solarium, and Malross and the sect have their own god to make kissy faces at. Sam squints his eyes and scribbles an asterisk next to Malross and Vernali's name, then puts his suspicions on hold and briefs Vernali on the missing persons in detail. 4 Dulaman females, you say? Vernali deduces that they are likely being used as a resource to fuel the summoning that he mentioned. Okay, well if that's true, then we still have a chance, Sam exclaims. Vernali is starting to pick up what Sam is putting down. If all of this was the result of an abyssal summoning ritual, then they could simply reverse it by dispelling its summoner. Find the hostages, find the summoner. Sam asks Vernali if he knows of any abyssal dispels. Vernali knew one, but it mattered not. Using abyssal magic during the thinning of the veil was like ringing the dinner bell. You were begging to get body snatched, not to mention having to keep the target alive long enough for the spell to run its course. Vernali knows you never let a summoner stay alive long. But if there was a hole in your world that needed to be sealed, then maybe a few more breaths could be spared. And maybe your body. Vernali decides. Okay, I know one, but I'll need you to knock him out quick, fast, and in a hurry, Sam. Sam nods, then puts together a list of common and seemingly mundane warehouse items for the civilians to assist in gathering. Vernali looks at Sam's little list, baffled at its silly contents. Number 3 was a Mason Mart vacuum cleaner. Vernali was humored. He sees that Sam was clearly trying to have a makeshift basket of clairvoyance built. The only way he would know that is if he had one. He notices the scroll tucked in Sam's trench. I took you for a detective, not a thief. Sam corrects Vernali. It was simply left behind when I chased Bosco from his Evolution District lair. Vernali flicks his thumb and a small gout of flame embroils it, lighting another cig. You know, you're still missing a very important ingredient on this list. Sam smiles. Yeah, that's what you're for. And that fork, he says while pointing at item number 16 on the list. Vernali scoffs and pushes Sam back. You know, for a detective, you sure don't have a clue. Vernali takes one last long drag of his cig. mildly stressed, but more than willing to save innocent hostages from some Yertle cunt magician. Vernali tosses the cig and approaches Sam with an open hand. He agrees to help Samuel Maximus close the case of the missing four, if it meant closing Uneldu's tear. The two shake. We cut to Vernali Connell, brave and calm, stepping back outside the tower. He knows the old man possessed by the abyssal monster is stalking him out of sight. Vernali reaches into his trench and pulls out an old holy relic with serrated edges. And very appropriate for severing the hands off of demons, Vernali walks slowly and begins whistling to taunt his abyssal stalker. And suddenly, leaping out from his peripherals, the naked and saggy old man latches onto Vernali's back and begins chomping at his neck until it finds itself bound and entangled in Vernali's endless trench coat engulfing it. Vernali comes walking out of the tower, his cheap dress shirt stained with sweat. With the blessed silverware fork gripped firm within both hands, Vernali approaches the abyssal quarry entrapped within his enchanted trench coat. We see the bottom of Vernali's shoe sole as his foot comes stomping down on the possessed man's melon, knocking it out cold. We cut to Sam scouring his notes while waiting for Vernali's return. His fingers dance across pages of suspects from countless ongoing investigations. Helene Arun, Tanya Blackthorne. Sam shivers at the thought of Tanya Blackthorne. Ooh. Ah, Bosco. Sam pulls out one of Bosco's stowed away documents, along with drawings and illustrations of the magical device he was trying to make. A basket of clairvoyance. Sam holds it up and compares the makeshift assembled one they made to the one on the scroll. It'll have to do. The tower door opens and everyone turns and sees Vernali entering the Haven Guard warehouse alive, as some doubted he would. He tosses the severed hand of a possessed man impaled upon a blessed fork into the air, and it lands square in the center of the makeshift basket of clairvoyance, which begins to glow. "It's working!" Sam shouts. Vernali shushes him as he approaches the glowing, trembling basket and lays down the deceased old man's corpse. Murmuring the incantation silently while waving his hands around, concentrating on the proper gestures and balance. An abyssal hound is suddenly siphoned halfway from out of the deceased old man's now elongated, tearing mouth. The dimensional creature growls and struggles to get free from the ritual binds to attack Sam and the civilians, but ultimately the laws of magic overcome and evaporates the creature, immediately powering the spell. The severed hand begins to spaz and cramp up within the center of the ruined remains of the basket for a moment or two until it finally settles down, its index finger pointing in one sole direction. Embedded in the palm were glowing etchings detailing the precise location of a summoning ley line. Sam kneels by the pointing hand and observes it. He then moves away his magnifying glass and passes the hand to Vernali, who reads the palm. It's the closest summoning ley line, and clear of the Civil War. Surely that's where he is. Vernali and Sam make haste. We cut to a dark library cellar and see four old Diliman women bound to each other's backs, suspended over a large glowing sigil etched into a clearing of old books. Bosco, the harbinger of Yertle, steps out of obscurity and begins chanting, "Oh Yertle, oh Yertle, oh Yertle, why have you abandoned me?" It was I who brought you across. How does the sect deserve your corrosive embrace? Suddenly, Sam's toy radiation gun pokes from out beside and aims at Bosco's head. I got your corrosive embrace, Bosco, Sam shouts, startling the cultist. Bosco puts his hands up, but looks testy, until Vernali reveals himself, issuing a warning to the hostile summoner. That isn't a toy he's pointing at you, Bosco. You'd sooner melt before he dies of cancer holding that thing. Don't move, don't say a word. Vernali begins untying the sacks of cloth over the 4 hostages' heads so they can breathe. They were all elderly Dulaman women, nearly suffocating under the burlap. Something about a Dulaman's soul, Vernali thinks to himself. Vernali gives Sam the signal, but Sam is too distracted by a sacred back and forth conversation he's having with Bosco. If you don't shoot me, Samuel Maximus, I will show you misery beyond imagination. Sam grinds his teeth, wondering how the hell does this lunatic know his full name? You think I chased you this far not to kill you, Bosco? Sam bluffs. Sam, you know what I could do to you. You've seen the fodder I left in my wake. Sam thinks back on all the mangled bodies discovered while trailing Bosco this whole time. It was frightening to the core, but even more so this very moment, Sam begins to think back on all the mangled bodies discovered while trailing Bosco. It was truly frightening to the core, but even more this very moment. Sam begins to sweat while pondering killing Bosco before it's too late. The thought of a warlock calling his bluff and then torturing him was nightmarish. Sam's trigger finger gets wobbly. Meanwhile, Vernali is screaming for his attention, but goes mildly unnoticed. Bosco's eyes peer into Sam's. Your magician friend is a peer of mine. Shoot me, and he would melt you before you could pull it again. Sam becomes dizzy and can't look away from Bosco's long blue tongue, slithering in and out of his mouth like a serpent. Sam's suspicions of Vernali Connell suddenly escalated, as does the feeling of dread. Bosco was right, he thinks. Vernali will be forced to end his ruse and take action against me. Maybe I should shoot Vernali first, Sam thinks. We cut away from Sam's stirring paranoid thoughts. Vernali sees Bosco whispering a spell along with his serpentine tongue and soon realizes that Sam is under the influence of the snake clout, a nasty spell typically used by folk you wouldn't give your address to. Vernali goes with plan B and proceeds to neutralize Bosco, but Sam jumps in between the two, deterring him from reaching his target. Before Sam could say a word, his face gets flattened by a swift straight jab, nearly breaking his nose. It drops Sam to the ground nonetheless. Vernali shakes his hand, pondering if maybe he should have held back a bit, when suddenly Bosco lunges at Vernali with a laser bone cutter, nearly severing his hand off. Vernali sways like a butterfly, evading Bosco's sneak attack with the knife, and then erects a wall of flame to repel a ghostly ball of darkness fired from Bosco's fingertips. Vernali lunges with the punch square into the frail wizard's ribs, breaking some, and prepares to KO uppercut him with the fist covered in flame, when suddenly a flash of green lights up the room as a small corona of radiation pulsates. An array of radiation soars across the air and vaporizes the entire leg of Bosco, sending him spiraling into some dusty books. Vernali turns and sees Sam Maximus laying on the ground with a bruised nose, aiming his toy gun with a clear mind. Vernali was flabbergasted. Alive, Sam, we need him alive! Vernali runs over to Bosco, who was holding on to dear life. All this meant was that Vernali would need to cast this soul barrier spell to fend off the abyss, then prepare the dispel, but thrice as fast. And he hasn't dispelled anyone in a decade. Bosco coughs up more blood. It's decided, Vernali thinks. This ends now. I'm done playing nice in a city of chaos. Vernali risks it and skips out on protecting his soul and leans Bosco's limp abdomen up against a stack of books so he could initiate the dispel's semantics. Bosco falls back over, but Sam comes to Vernali's aid. Time was of the essence as Bosco was dying at any moment. Finally, Vernali prepares the ritual and goes to press his thumb onto Bosco's forehead, which in turn begins to turn his whole body cold as the veil begins to peel away from Bosco himself. The abyssal plane begins to manifest around the three of them. The veil was so thin, the laws of Bosco's Yurtle premonition spell begins to wither and lose power as the abyssal dispel diminishes its meaning in all coexisting planes. Vernali shouts, "It's working, Sam!" and notices Sam's pale, intense face looking up at something large that arrived behind Vernal Connell. Vernali turns around quickly and finds himself under a large abyssal crocodile-like behemoth. The large monster pounces toward Vernali's soul just as the dispel finishes. Vernali grabs Bosco's maimed body and uses it as a body shield. Well, in this case, a vessel. Thinking quickly, Vernali grabs Bosco's maimed body and uses it as a body shield, or in this case, a vessel. As the abyssal behemoth comes crashing down, it instead gets absorbed into Bosco. And Vernali tosses its body to the side like a sack of potatoes and catches his breath. Looking up, Sam takes a deep sigh of relief and lays back down. Both out of breath, freezing, yet slowly warming back up. All over the world, we see the massive dimensional tear created by Uneldu reverse slowly and seal itself, as all over the world the antagonizing malicious purple matter begins to fade, and those still within reach of true sanity begin to return to normal. Sam leans up and searches for his toy gun. Vernali tells Sam to stop looking for it. He should lose it. That ray gun takes a lethal toll on the body. Sam waves it off, just as he spots it laying beside his fedora. I can't just lose it, it's my baby. I've been using it for years. Suddenly, the possessed Bosco wraps its arms around Vernali's neck from behind with abyssal strength and prepares to snap it like a twig. Vernali shouts, "Shoot it, shoot it, shoot it, goddammit!" Sam points and aims his ray gun and fires.